for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. And in this video I want to explore the importance of Christ community and what does it mean for us in our personal or individual ascension. So the first thing I want to talk about today is that the Christed community, the community of embodying not just the principle of Christ as in the consciousness of Christ and the cosmic heart, but the principles of the light body inner technology as it's embedding itself slowly and gradually within the physical nature or the physical body of our human counterpart. This community is still the smallest, most minute community that exists on our planet, and yet it's also the community that's doing the deepest work. So at the same time, although it's narrower, the path gets very much narrow for the people who enter this soul resurrection and physical ascension experience, but at the same time it's the work that has the most effect on the collective and creating the way showing pathway that I've talked about actually in the previous video. The second thing I want to mention is that still I see a lot of people when they talk about physical ascension, not just people, but it's generalized nowadays in the spiritual communities that the ascension is somehow related with raising our frequency, or that ascension is simply raising our vibration, which is not true. It is very important for us to raise our frequency naturally. This is like a natural result. Like anything you do that uplifts you will raise your frequency. However, physical ascension is not just a work of raising the frequency within the body. It is literally a light technology, or the technology of the light body, the luminous self or our luminous aspect coming into the body, coming into the physical form. So just like we would say, okay, we all understand what resonance means, right? So resonance would be explained or experienced when we say, oh, I resonate with this, or I resonate with that, or that person, or that teaching, or this came to my path and somehow it resonates with me in this moment. But resonance is a reflection of our consciousness in that state. So our consciousness resonates with something or with a particular essence of something through our body. But going through the physical notion or the physical experience of raising the Christ within our body is more related to the deepest compassion for the human experience. I talked about it before. And so compassion is actually built within the body. Compassion is cultivated within the body. That's why some of these uplifting experiences when we're raising the Christ to our body through ascension, descension, and then illumination, which is a threefolded path of physical ascension. It is always like this. We're ascending, we need to descend those aspects of, the self that are ascending at this particular time. And there are several of them. Just like many people are picking up aspects that were part of particular lifetimes during their course of their journey of the soul, and they're starting to remember them, and they always are triggered, or the memory comes at a specific timing, specific timeline that aligns with the journey of the spiral. So that's one aspect. Then the second is that ascended aspect needs to drop into the experience and then needs to illuminate and raise, that aspect that is still somehow lying dormant and hasn't experienced itself at the illumined level, because we're still experiencing the fallen aspect, of that archetype within us. And I've talked about this many times before, how these archetypes are behind the stories that we tell ourselves or that we've experienced, or aspects of our soul have experienced on this path, perhaps on earth and different lifetimes elsewhere as well. And on earth, it's like picking up these fragmented aspects and then bringing them into what we call the soul synthesis, or the synthesis that is performed through the white ray. And it's not just the white ray is for the people who belong to the path of the white ray. The white ray is a natural, organic affinity for, this synthesis process, which I've talked about like years and years back, like so much, right? And the next step is illumination. And illumination is only possible when our synchronized path of ascension and descension will be unified within our body. We will equally understand, not just understand, but also apply the principles of ascension and descension in equal proportion, so that it becomes like a natural flow. It's like anything you do, when you do it properly and for a certain amount of time, right, you get good at it, you're mastering it, becomes automatic at a certain point, right? So you no longer need to practice it, but it just becomes like a natural self-utilizing force. It becomes a part of you simply moving the force of spirit or life force of Holy Spirit through your body. And it's actually the third level of illumination belongs to Holy Spirit resurrecting these aspects like through us. So it's difficult because I've talked about this before. Previous aspects are more will driven, while the aspect of this graceful, right, illumination that belongs to like Holy Spirit life force, kind of like doing this through us, it belongs to the synthesized aspects, right, the illumined aspect of our being. But once we're able to kind of like attune through it and become a part of it by becoming illumined ourselves in a way through that equalized ascension and descension. I hope I've managed to explain it right. This is just short explanation because, you know, I do this work more deeply, and each month we go deeper on my page called Patreon, which is called the Lumen Ascension. And, you know, every person, of course, will resonate with specific aspects of what I share there, and a channel through spirit. It's coming through as a gradual unfoldment of this path according to where they are. But it doesn't mean, you know, that someone is far behind, or, you know, someone's not doing it, or this is not being done through them. It's simply a very organic path, and you don't need to intellectualize where you are, because the moment you start doing that, you're actually not ascending. Because you're thinking about ascending. Ascension is truly possible, like the physical aspect, when you're in the most surrender state, like this egoless state, when you just understand that whatever is happening is like your soul is doing it, and the soul always knows when and how. Okay, so that's one aspect. This month on Patreon, I will actually be talking about what Spirit has shown me. You know, I mentioned in the previous video something about passing the baton, but in one of the channel sessions I've previously had, this was actually more in detail, in depth explained to me as that oversoul ascension, because most individuals still don't understand that this is just as much as the individual soul journey as it becomes or is fueled by the oversoul component. So it's like the soul returns to the oversoul nature, but while in the physical body holding that aspect, and this is performed through the light body inner consciousness that's gradually embedding itself through the body. So recently I've channeled also a drawing which will become a part of my cosmic drawings that I've been drawing like for a couple of years now, and compiling them together as they're coming along, and it's a progression of my own personal physical ascension experience. And the reason why I'm able to talk about this, because I'm physically undergoing all of these stages, and I realize that these are cycles and none of these stages can be skipped over. And those of us who came here as light beings to show the way, we've had several ascensions that weren't perhaps related with this planetary template, but we had ascensions before on other aspects of the wheel of life, to call it like that. And we have a memory. We just know how to do it without consciously, as our human counterpart, needing to know. The moment we go into that mind, you know, chatter mode, we can start doubting anything. You know, you can have this awareness as a light being, but as a human, we're all prone to doubt and like self-limiting beliefs, until we reach a certain level of light quotient integration that just becomes natural, and we have nothing but complete trust. And this is like, it's a gradual process. But the reason why, you know, sometimes people tell me, how do you know all these things, and, you know, how are you willing to share all this, and how does this just come through you? It's because I've done it before. You know, my essence has done it before. So in this month's Patreon update, I will also explain what does it mean to have this Christed ability in a relation to merging the essence with the essence of anything else and receiving guidance in this way, because it's a different way of receiving, like being guided or simply just existing through source in a way that is Christed. I'll also be explaining that. And in the last part now, I want to mention the importance of building a Christed community because of the nature of the smallness that it still holds. And there's a lot of people who are in different parts, of course, regions on this planet, like suffering in silence or going through it alone and thinking, well, Ascension is so difficult because I have to go through alone and it's my own mastery. At a certain point, you will have to realize that this is an oversoul experience, and this is what I'll be talking about and addressing in this month's part of my Lumen Union updates that I do. As you know, you can access the content per different levels, starting with just the basic level of written material, and then it gradually elevates through video, Lumen Union readings and sharings, and then the advanced level is about a higher galactic perspective and consciousness and further training of advancement within physical ascension with all the proper tools, light technologies, and everything that Spirit shows me at that particular time. So besides that, and the content being available there and the knowledge being there for those who are called, and you know, people are at different levels, so maybe at a certain point it would resonate with them and then they would pull back, and then again, and it's just natural. I totally understand that. But besides that, I want to talk about this, that the community aspect is also important, not just knowledge itself. And it's because as above, so below, you know, our earthly communities, even though it's not in relation perhaps to our oversoul group, which is our own innate light team, which is an individualized aspect of our presence that yet is also held at the group level, but it's still individualized, and it has a specific essence within all life in creation that is just ours, with skills that are not really skills or gifts that are outwardly, but they're just like an innate principle within us through which we were born into life, with the breath of life into this creation. And as we're doing this deep ascension work, we're getting to know more and more. And so as I was doing this work in my human body, I was, you know, going as far back as, you know, the origin in this universe, and where it all started for me, and where we traveled as a light family, and how we eventually ended up here. And it's just, you know, it's not a mental journey. You know, many years ago when I was thinking about those things, nothing came because there wasn't time yet. And whenever something came is because I opened that door, I opened that gateway, and the knowledge just came spontaneously without me even needing to ask. And as I was taking that back through the journey, right, of soul voyaging in a way, I connected with the aspect, the core essence of our group, which are beings who operate with life force understanding, you know, how life force is actually created through Holy Spirit, how it births life forth, and how we use it, how we create anything through the principles of life force. And that's actually the fundamental basis of all my teachings. And even in the videos I do on Patreon, you know, the advanced levels are very much about this understanding and how we utilize the practices and tools for the physical body, because it's the physical body that's undergoing this experience. And in many cases of those souls who are ascending for the first time physically, they're needing to cultivate that understanding. And when the understanding is there, as you know, everything just follows that understanding. You don't need to do much like physically through effort. Sometimes just the effort lies in coming to that understanding, but once the understanding is there, like everything else just naturally takes you back into the integration. So understanding will trigger a lot of that, which will come through the automatic piloting mode, is you're just simply living through the experience, because that's actually all that's required. It's just allowing ourselves to live through this experience, whatever it is. And certain segments of it are easier, certain ones are more difficult. But in my own training, I was shown a lot at this time how we are also training for several aspects of changing the human template, which was kind of stuck in a certain mode like for eons of time, and how our luminous life force generating group is trying to uplift this current human template and rewrite certain aspects of it so that it's following the evolutionary pattern of our soul ascension. Because we, not many people know that, but we also have an evolutionary form. We have also what we call the evolutionary body. And we don't know until we get this guidance. And when we're going in through the experience, and the evolutionary body might feel a bit wobbly because you're neither here or there. And there's a lot of dynamics that we need to understand. And, you know, when the understanding is birthed, much more ease can come into our lives. So that's one aspect that I wanted to mention and address, and this is all in the video materials I share there. As you know, you can also, if you're just beginning, there is a physical Trinity of Life or Organic Ascension course on my webpage under Physical Ascension tab, which you can access there. But also, I don't know how many times I mentioned this before, but all my patrons actually have 20% discount on all of my courses, which are basic trainings to start somewhere, and then it just gets more elevated and more elevated. So the work I do on Patreon is kind of like the in-depth, the deeper exploration, and usually people who've done the courses already and people who are more deeply participating and engaging with this path and already doing the work, and have gone through, you know, the training of the more basic levels, but it's not the kind of training you would think, you know, like in a boot camp. It's not like that at all. It's just simply following the steps, channeling whatever is coming forth, and then following the steps and allowing. And it's kind of like building a new overlay of where we are in our physical ascension. But the last aspect that I was kind of aiming towards is the importance of building a community within people who are actually undergoing this path, so that there wouldn't be so much this feeling of going through it alone. So I wanted to recommend for those of you who perhaps don't feel an inclination to become a part of the membership on Patreon. It's not a sponsorship, basically. Well, if you want that to be just that, that's okay. But it's basically a content-based, subscription-based page where you receive each month these updates and guidance. And you also help to support the fellowship, which is within the core of what I'm doing. It's anchoring these higher light intelligences from, you know, it's not just like when we say from the stars, but basically it's an overlay of the entire galaxy that is writing itself in a new way. And that's difficult to do just through one human aspect. You know, what I'm thinking about it sometimes is, even when you're just one human, you need a group, you need a support group also in the physical. At the same time, those people also are supported. So it all creates this web of light through which all operates with ease. And that's kind of like my intention in this life, to eventually go deeper into that. So I wanted to propose that if you're not feeling inclined in any way to participate in receiving the content or updates on Patreon, or you're kind of financially unable, but you still want to be part of it, you can just join Patreon at any rate, starting probably with, what's their minimum amount? Is it $1 or something? Just to join the Patreon of my page called Illumined Ascension, because you automatically, I think, when you're a subscriber, you can post in the community section, because my page also has a community section tab, and you can post and you share whatever you feel or your experiences. You know, it's not guidance based, because Patreon is the group anchoring level work that I'm doing. So it's not me, people who are there, you know, asking me for personal guidance. I can't do that, of course. I only do that via sessions, which are very deep, and usually they last for quite a long time, because there's a lot of aspects being channeled through when I'm sitting with someone individually. But Patreon is kind of like the support group, the building blocks, the foundational blocks of sharing, of togetherness, which is so important. And just in the last session, the spirit team kept reiterating the words togetherness. And I'll explain this further in this month's update, an extended Illumined Union update, because I've already done the basic one, which will be about the deep understanding of what this means from an oversoul overlay understanding, and how we can merge with that consciousness and enter into that next level. But it's also important for us as humans to enter that fellowship of sharing, because sometimes we forget that just sharing our experience, or just an aspect of it, or just saying, here I am, I'm also going through this, can create an opening space within you to invite new experiences and open up to new levels of your being. And it doesn't have to be like the status quo. And it's like, usually, you know, people who find me via sessions that are personal, they're usually people who are right on the verge of a major threshold in their life. And sometimes it takes more courage to access that level and to take the next step. And I totally understand. So these are timeless, you know, gatherings or getting together at the individual level. But on Patreon, it's like, if you want to join in any amount, even if it's not accessing the content, you'll be able to write in the community section and share, or perhaps, you know, ask someone who's also there for something, or exchange aspects, or some people share their poetry, something they were experiencing from their heart. It's really beautiful, you know, how it feels when even for myself as an anchor, like I'm in the middle of it, but even as an anchor, I feel such deep support also from people who are like around this circle. And it's like the middle becomes the circle, and the circle becomes the middle. It's a unification journey. So it's really beautiful. As I was watching it for the last, I don't know, I've been doing this around 2 years, maybe. I don't know the exact time frame, but it's been really beautiful for me. And in a way, sometimes it has deepened, sometimes it has, you know, gone a little further out. But my next intention is to work towards more of the communal things, perhaps not right now, but the intention was birthed at this time. And I think it's beautiful, because we're actually going to go through the Saturn transit. And from our Western astrology perspective, it will actually be Aquarius that Saturn will be transiting through. And I think it starts to dip its toe into that at the end of March. I think maybe then it will retrograde and then come back, and basically these 3 years, 2.5, it will move through the sign of Aquarius. And Saturn is the difficult planet. In many cases, it's also seen as maleficent, but in truth, not maleficent, malevolent, sorry. But in many cases, it's just simply an evolutionary planet. It helps with our evolutionary nature here as humans. It's kind of like the passing experience, what we call the lower, planets that are around the orbit closer here to Earth, and then the outside planets, which are more like higher spiritual aspects, like Jupiter. Then we have Uranus, Neptune, and including some asteroids like Pluto. But in truth, it's like it's a transitory nature, because it's what gets us to the other side. So it helps us with our evolution, and sometimes these challenges, of course, will be more difficult. And I believe that as it's going to transit through the sign of Aquarius, it will help us to go through these transitions not alone, but in a communal way, because Aquarius is not just a sign of the new age, right? The dawning age of the Aquarius, that many people actually reference that it's starting this year. I don't know where they get this information, but perhaps like the seed of it. We're not even at the beginning stages yet. We're just beginning, but still, it's important, right, to tune into those aspects that are coming through. And it's also a sign of community, but community through a greater sense of merging. And I always see it in a way that like a sign that guides us through our oversoul aspect. So if you're interesting, or you're all interesting, of course, because you're watching the video, because I'm interesting. Just a joke here. But if you're interested, you can follow up these updates. You can subscribe to the content. Of course, anyone can leave whenever. You're not bound to anything. It's not like one of those subscriptions to the gym that then you eventually can get yourself out of, because call the next operator, call the next one, and then you're like, oh, I'm hooked, I can get out of this. It's nothing like that. It's just, if you don't like it, if that's not for you, if your path is somehow leading you in a different direction, that's fine. But I do propose the mature, responsible way of committing and communing, which is like, you don't just jump in and jump out, and that way, you just like make the tuning into energetically feel really deeply if that's something for you and calling you. But if you feel like at the same time you want to be part of the community, because a lot of people over the years have been wanting to share their stories with me, like everything that's been happening, writing me these long emails, and I was like, I really understand. I have deep compassion for everyone, because this is not an easy path, but I can go through everyone's journey and read all about everyone's paths individually, because I'm processing at the same time all of my own, plus sharing all the guidance about it, which leaves me pretty busy with life of the physical ascension. So that's all that I can offer. But if you will join in any way, at least to access the community section on Patreon, if that's something you would feel called to do or inspired, or share something of your own and the gift of your voice, maybe just making a simple post or invitation or whatever, sometimes people could meet. I don't know. I'm just saying that a lot is possible once we open up a new doorway, and that's something that I'm really interested in the times to come. And through my own life transitions, which are now pretty intense, I am hoping to eventually hold a physical space. What I've been talking about for years and years about these retreats and basically just gatherings. So we'll see. But for now, that's about the statement that I wanted to make. So I hope you're all enjoying yourselves wherever you are. Welcome to join, and I'll see you in the next update. So take care of yourselves, and as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. Bye-bye for now.